Hey everyone, and welcome to the Hemp Horticulture series. Today, we'll be giving a general overview of how to grow hemp to cultivate for CBD. This is a general overview covering the basics of what you need to know before you start your first grow. Remember that this is a broad overview, so if you're interested and want to learn more about any of the topics discussed here today, definitely check out our Hemp Horticulture series, where we'll tackle each individual topic in a lot more details. One of the oldest industrial plants, hemp has been used for 10,000 years, from textile and clothing to food and medicine. With a recent troubled history leading to prohibition across the world, hemp is now legal again in the United States and is finally being acknowledged for what it is: a fast-growing, extremely versatile industrial plant with a wide range of medicinal uses. And here we'll be covering mainly the medicinal side of hemp, teaching people how to grow and process the plant at home to produce your own consumables, oils, and lotions. Hemp is a strain of cannabis that has been bred to lower the psychoactive component of cannabis, tetrahydrocannabinol, otherwise known as THC, from the buds, so that the plant produces basically no psychoactive effects. On the other hand, the cannabidiol, or CBD, in the cannabis buds has been kept the same, if not increased. And this is where the medicinal value of hemp comes from, as CBD has been linked to everything from pain relief to lowering anxiety. Other than that though, there's basically no other difference when it comes to a hemp plant when compared with any other cannabis plant. So the look, feel, and smell of a hemp plant versus a cannabis plant are pretty much identical, and that goes for how they're grown as well. So why grow hemp at home? For industrial and textile purposes, this wouldn't make much sense since you'll need both a lot of hemp and some heavy machinery to process the stalks and stems. However, if you're growing hemp to harvest for CBD, then growing at home provides a lot of benefits. Not only will you be able to control what's going into the plant to ensure that it's safe for consumption, but with access to the plant throughout the entire grow and harvest cycle, you can process the plant to make any type of medicinal CBD product. From oils to consumables, teas to body creams, the possibilities are endless when you have access to your own hemp plants. Now, growing hemp requires knowledge of basically two things: the hemp plant and the plant's environment, which is a combination of the plant's home, food, weather, and lighting. Let's start first with learning about the plant itself. With hemp, we have the life cycle of a seed, seedling, vegetative, and flowering states. Hemp is an annual plant, which means that in the wild, it'll only go through the entire life cycle once a year. So whether you're planning on growing indoors or outdoors, the key is to be able to reproduce these environmental conditions for the plant to thrive. For growing hemp, there's two types to choose from: a regular photoperiod variety and an auto-flowering ruderalis variety. The regular plants have a life cycle that's based purely on the amount of light the plant receives. So for example, outdoors, the plant will grow during the spring and summer months when there's plenty of sunlight throughout the day. And then when it detects less sunlight in the fall and winter months, it'll begin to flower to produce next year's seeds. The auto-flowering ruderalis plants will go through its life cycle based purely on the age of the plant, no matter how much sunlight it gets, and usually completes the entire plant life cycle in 2 to 3 months. Both of these types have their advantages. Auto-flowering plants have a short life cycle for quick harvests and don't have any strict lighting schedule requirements, which works great for off-season grows. While the regular plants are easier to control, so they're more mistake-friendly. Let's say, for example, you messed up somewhere along the way while the plant was growing, which stunted the growth for a month. With an auto-flowering plant, you might have to start over because the plant will be too small to produce anything worthwhile in the flowering stage. But with a regular plant, you can wait it out and then proceed to flower the plant after it recovers. Regular plants also generally yield more CBD, since with the longer grow time, they can be grown much larger. Hemp plants can also either be male or female, with the female plants being the only ones that produces a significant amount of cannabinoids from the trichomes to form around the buds. Trichomes are tiny, shiny, sticky little crystals that form around the buds as a defense mechanism to protect the flower. And, luckily for us, is where the cannabinoids, which are the chemical compounds such as CBD that provides the medicinal benefits, are located. The male plants, on the other hand, contain basically no cannabinoids and instead only produces pollen to pollinate the females. Now that might sound like a great idea to have both male and female plants around to be able to produce hemp seeds. But the problem is that when a female plant is pollinated, the plant will focus all of its energy on creating seeds and stop creating cannabinoids. So unless your goal in growing hemp is to make hemp seeds, you don't want male plants. There's also a second way to grow hemp, and that's with clones. Clones are side branches of a hemp plant that when cut and planted will become a copy of the original plant. This method completely skips the seed and seedling stage of the plant life cycle, which saves time as it guarantees that the plant will have all of the same characteristics and be the same sex as the plant it was cut from. Clones are great because of these reasons. However, for most people, access to another hemp plant to obtain a clone is usually not an option starting out. Although once you have your first plant from a seed, you can start taking clones from it. Now that we covered the basics of the plant, let's take a look at the environment hemp will need to grow in, starting with what's beneath the plant, the grow mediums and food the plant needs, which go hand in hand. There's a wide range of grow mediums available, with one end being composted soil to the other end of pure hydroponics, and then there's everything in between. Each grow medium has their pros and cons, but generally, the closer you get to composted soil, the simpler it is to grow, which is great for beginners because they're more forgiving to mistakes such as over and under watering, require less nutrients, and are cheaper to set up. While the closer you get to a pure hydroponic system, the more complex and expensive it gets. But with more control, it means quicker grows and larger plants for the experienced grower. With something like composted soil, microorganisms in the soil are able to generate and provide most if not all the nutrients for the plant. Using regular soil will provide some micronutrients, and so forth down the line until you get to a pure hydroponic system, which will require you to provide every single nutrient and micronutrient a plant needs. For nutrients, let's take a look at the big three: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. While hemp will require about the same amount of potassium throughout its entire life cycle, it'll need more nitrogen in the vegetative stage and then more phosphorus in the flowering stage. This is because nitrogen is responsible for growth, which happens mostly in the vegetative stage, while phosphorus is responsible for fruit and flower development, which is essential during the flowering stage. And potassium is responsible for overall plant functions, so it's needed throughout the life cycle of the plant. If this sounds a little overwhelming, don't worry too much about it, as general knowledge of this isn't that crucial, as the correct amount of these nutrients are usually pre-formulated and broken up into two fertilizer types, grow and bloom. So as long as you switch from a grow fertilizer to the bloom fertilizer when the plant starts to flower, you'll be fine. The two other nutrients that are also important to the plant are calcium and magnesium, both of which are important for the plant cell wall structure and helps the absorption of other nutrients. Both of these are also usually found in tap water as well as in soil. But if you notice a calcium or magnesium deficiency, then you'll need to include it with your feed. Now above ground, we'll need to recreate a favorable environment for the plant, which is a mix between the right temperature, humidity, fresh air, and lighting, which, depending on what type of setup you're considering, could range from free to set up to your biggest grow expense. The first big thing to consider is air. More specifically, the carbon dioxide in air. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. So without a fresh air source, the plant will suffocate, which is not an issue for outdoor growers. But for indoor growers, you'll need a way to constantly cycle in fresh air. The temperature and humidity of the air is also important, as plants like to be above 60 degrees at night and below 90 degrees during the day, with a high humidity of 40 to 70% throughout the grow cycle, except during the flowering stage, which the plant will want a slightly lower relative humidity range of around 30 to 60% to avoid mold. The light intensity, as well as the amount of lighting a day a plant receives, is usually the bottleneck in how large a plant gets. Generally, the more lighting a plant receives and the brighter the light a plant receives, the larger it will grow. As we talked about earlier, a photoperiod regular hemp plant will stay in the vegetative stage as long as it receives more than 12 hours of lighting a day, since the plant will believe it's the spring and summer months. Once the plant starts receiving less than 12 hours of lighting a day, it will automatically switch from the vegetative to the flowering stage. In fact, if a photoperiod plant only receives 12 hours of lighting a day, it'll go straight from a seedling to the flowering stage, completely skipping the vegetative stage. And the vegetative stage is very important because the plant stems and leaf growth only happens during the vegetative stage. So if it's skipped, the plant will yield very little. So in general, you'll want to keep the plants in either an 18 to 24 hour light cycle for at least a couple of weeks for the plant to grow a little bit larger before switching to the flowering stage. For lighting, if you're growing outdoors, just be sure to place the plant in a sunny spot where it can get the most sunlight throughout the day. With the sun, too much lighting isn't an issue, although spikes in humidity and temperatures can become a problem. So those are the two things that'll need to be watched. Indoors, there are three common options for lighting: high intensity discharge lighting, fluorescent lighting, and LED lighting. Each have their pros and cons, but in our opinion, because of the constant drop in LED pricing, which used to be its biggest con, the pros of LED lighting now outweigh the other two lighting types, especially for new growers because of their ease to set up, low electricity requirements, and low heat output while providing a great intensive light. And that's it. For more grow knowledge, the Grow Hemp series will feature grow logs so you can see a plant grow in action, while the Hemp Horticulture series will cover all aspects of the plant in more details. To learn more about the tools needed to grow and process hemp, the Hemp Processing and Technology series will help with just that. And finally, to convert the CBD on the hemp into oils, consumables, lotions, and other products, check out the Hemp in a Pot series.